So, we're going to be talking about autoimmunity today. Why do I bring this up? Because there are so many patients that I've seen over the years, so many friends diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, let's say colitis, Crohn's disease, celiac disease. Maybe they've been diagnosed with lupus or Hashimoto's, and they're not being given any answers. My guest today is a naturopathic physician, but that's not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about her struggle where she was at a point of being on 10 medications, seeing multiple specialists for multiple autoimmune disease, and changed her diet and her mindset, and has now been symptom free, medication free, and technically diagnosis free since, gosh, over 10 years, longer than that. And so we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the roles that she played as a child and as an adult, how that put stress on her body, her role as a perfectionist, how she tried to control everything, the twists and turns of her story, and what finally brought her to recovery. So listen up. If you have autoimmunity, this is going to be an important episode. I would like to introduce Dr. Jen Stotlar. She is a naturopathic physician in Illinois, and let's get rolling. Well, hi, Dr. Jen. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm loving it. Sorry.
Good. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. And we were having a little bit of a chat before this where you were so delightfully singing. And I have to bring this up. No, I have to bring this up because your story is one that has a lot of twists and turns, which I think is so similar to many people in the audience. It's like no one has just one story, right? We wear so many hats and we have so many different things. And even when somebody asks me, hey, why did you become a naturopathic physician? I'm always like, well, which story do you want? You want the story about my dad, my mom, my childhood, my personal health history, right? And so one of the things you were saying kind of prompted me to discuss maybe the idea of these images and this like idea of what we're supposed to be when we're little girls and we're watching TV and we're told this is what the future is or this is what you want to step into. And I'd like to start because you were telling me about a commercial that when you were little totally spoke to you, and I'm guessing it played a fairly big role in what you took on in your life. So what was this commercial? Even if you don't sing, but what was the gist of it? And remind people, because I bet people will remember.
Yeah, I bet they'd remember if I sang it, but it's Anjali, and it's probably from the early 80s would be my
Yeah.
guess. And it was a woman in a business suit, and she was working. She had high heels and a skirt, like a pencil skirt, and walking, and then she was grabbing a frying pan and then cooking with her suit on, and then she was talking about how she wouldn't let her man forget, like, that he was a man. So um all the things, just being all the things, being this impeccable businesswoman, this great mom, this great wife, sexy, right? Doing all the things and doing it well. And I still remember it so vividly to this day. So I think back and I think it must have had some huge impact on my life.
Well, I think, the idea of it is great. And obviously, we want to empower women. We've come a long way as
Yeah.
women. I think that's important. But at the same time, should we put that much expectation of us at the expense of our health? And I think this is especially in our generation because we were inundated with messages of women can do this and we can. There's no
Hmm.
question that we
Hmm.
can. The question is at what cost should we? Should we try to be everything? And why is it that we're choosing to take on that role? And did we lose the ability to set our boundaries in the process and the boundaries for our health and our mental health and all of that? Do you have children?
Yes, I do.
Any girls?
Yes, I do.
I'm even curious, like we talk about what am I modeling? What am I modeling
Yeah.
for my children? You know, we were raised in this, hey, you can do it all. You're a woman. Don't say no to anything. You are better than anything, blah, 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 which is great. But then is that what we also want to model for our children? For me, as a physician, and I'm sure for you, I see the stress that they're under and the way that that's impacting them. And I don't want to put that pressure on my kids. You know, I just don't want
Yeah.
to. So, so you had this idea that you were supposed to do it all. And how old were you approximately when you remember that?
Uh, at what point? When I
When you
saw
were
the
watching the
commercial?
commercial, were you like
I was probably about
elementary school?
10, yeah, like
Yeah.
10 to 12-ish years. Yeah,
Would you consider yourself a perfectionist or somebody that started to become more of a perfectionist from that idea?
for sure. I was a perfectionist all the way, straight A's, huge. It put a lot of pressure on myself. And yeah, like you were saying, my oldest daughter is the same way. Super perfectionist. Um, put a lot of pressure on herself, and she's done a pretty good job of already being able to notice that, and has shifted away from that a little bit, thankfully.
Did your parents model that for you? Or was that just you?
I think it was just me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, the modeling, I don't really remember seeing that in my parents so much.
I
Part of it,
interviewed someone the other day where like the mom was a doctor, the dad was a doctor, like
yeah.
everybody was a doctor. And it was like she was like, yeah, I was just supposed to become a doctor. And I do wonder, do you have siblings?
I do. I am the oldest,
Ah,
and lower middle income growing up, south side of Chicago. So I took care of them. My parents both worked. So I kind of, um, I don't know that I did a good job, but
of course you did.
I was the one like making dinner a lot of times,
Mhm.
and making sure everybody was doing their homework and things like that. Yeah.
You know, this brings up a couple memories for me as well. I'm an only, but
Okay.
I, growing up in the modeling world and growing up working, I mean, I've worked since I was born. I don't have a time where I wasn't. But because of that, I was a bit older, I think, in how I was. Like, I presented older. I took care of people. I cooked on my own, similar to you, made my own
Yeah.
meals. I was babysitting at age 10. You know, I was taking care of other people. And I think from the outside, and you can agree or disagree, the parents probably looked in and said, wow, she's really self sufficient. She's great.
Mhm.
We can just
Yeah.
let her go. We can let her do it. It's cool. We don't worry about it. And I do wonder, how did that impact us? As I've done more subconscious work with myself and looking at the patterns that have been developed in me over the years, I've noticed that that in some ways did inhibit the way that my brain wired for things and did change the way that I looked at the world or the expectations I put on myself. Would
Yeah.
you agree that doing that, do you think that was a hindrance to you or a positive thing or a mixture of both?
I I think it was I think so it that was my role till I was about 16, and then my siblings were old enough to kind of do their own thing, and then I just became the wild child. Like
Okay, so let's talk about wild children because perfect.
alcohol, drugs, like doing like I was my grades no longer straight A. I like hated school. I graduated early just so I could leave school, right?
Yeah.
Like yeah. But my mom, at some point when I was around 13 or 14, she was washing my hair in the sink, another vivid memory, and we were talking about what to do. And I think like, as I got older, and I think I asked, well, what happens when I'm 18? Like, I'm an adult. What does that mean in my life, right? And she said, well, you move out and you start living on your own. So I made plans to do that. Like,
Yeah.
that was it. That was the entire conversation. I never asked any more about it. There was never any more conversation. I just knew I was moving out at 18. And that's not at all what my mom meant. Like, she wasn't kicking me out at 18.
I totally moved out at 18 too. It was like, I'm
But
18. Okay, see ya. Like I was out.
yeah,
There wasn't even I even went across states and went to college and was just like, I'm out. I'm an adult now. Take care. But I think when we take care of so many other people, we have that skill set to take care of ourselves,
We
even if
do.
we're wild children for a little
We
while.
do. Yeah.
So you were out there having fun, doing your thing. Did you get married young?
I was 18. I was 18. Got married the first time when I
Whoa.
was 18. Yeah.
Whoa.
So
What was that like?
that was awesome. I mean, it felt fine. Everything about my childhood and even young adult felt totally normal at the time, right? Like my childhood was probably somewhat traumatic and, you
Yeah.
know, but it didn't feel weird. Everybody I knew was in the same boat. This was how everybody lived, right? So,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, I got married at 18. Didn't seem all that crazy. I really loved the guy. We'd been together for a while and making it work, but it doesn't really work when it's dysfunctional. So we were married 6 years, no children. Um, it didn't work out.
Yeah, and it was a stressful marriage towards the end, right? Like
It was.
it wasn't a healthy environment for you. And I don't think you're alone in this decision, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get married at 18. I did live with an addict for a while and had to come to terms with, okay, I'm either going to let this person take me down or I'm going to stand up for myself and
Yeah.
go somewhere else and become something in my life. And I don't think that's a negative. I think that needed to happen. I think in order for me to really step into who I was and what I was going to be, I had to be in that situation. Because when you take care of people your entire life and you're the person that is relied upon, it kind of feels good to go have fun for a while and
Hmm.
not and just kind of be in the moment, and then you're like, oh shoot, which path do I really want to take now? And
Yeah.
you chose to go into, was it in finance? You chose to go into finance and
Yeah.
accounting?
Yeah.
It
So
wasn't like you wanted to become a doctor at the time.
I did want to become a doctor. So I originally was pre-med, but got sick
Okay.
and kind of figured I wasn't, they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis at the time. Turned out it was Crohn's, but that's okay. Similar enough at the time. Um, and then I got married. Well, I kind of already decided I wasn't going to go pursue medical degree because it was going to be too hard. It was going to be too hard on my body at that point.
For
So,
anyone listening, I mean, trying to sit through med school with
yeah,
any type of colitis, where you're constantly running to the bathroom, you're constantly fatigued, often you're getting sores and stuff in your mouth, and you feel like
elsewhere.
crap all the
Yeah.
time. You're afraid to eat. Any of you with autoimmune diseases out there, especially the GI ones, like I'm sure you can understand, it is not an easy thing to do, and the commitment in med school, is tough. And just on that medical thing for a moment, there aren't a lot of solutions for people with autoimmunity, particularly the GI. I mean, I treat celiac a lot, and they're literally told avoid gluten, and they're kicked out the door. And no one talks about dairy. No one talks about other inflammatory things, right? You're given a steroid and avoid gluten. You don't even get avoid gluten with Crohn's or ulcerative
No, you
colitis,
don't
right?
get that. Well,
They're just
at
like,
least
get
you
out of
didn't
here.
back then.
Yeah, here's your infusion. So you started to have, it was this around the same time you were married? So late teens, early 20s, started to have these health issues?
Yeah, so I was 18 when it
Yeah.
started. Well, it started before that, but diagnosed when I was 18. I'd had 6 weeks straight of diarrhea. Didn't know, again, I didn't know that that wasn't normal. I just, right? Like I knew.
Yeah.
So
You
finally,
you
one,
don't know, right?
no, one of my parents noticed like that I was not going to a mall with them or something. They're like, "Well, why aren't you coming with?" I said, "Well, because we're going to be gone too long and I need to be by the bathroom." And they said,
Jeez.
"What?" So that's how that finally came out. I'm like, I didn't tell it. It didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me to tell people. I just kept everything to myself and not because I felt I had to. It just didn't occur to me to ever say anything. So,
Well, because you take care of yourself. Why should you
right,
say something to anybody? Like, you
right,
don't need anyone's help, right?
right. I probably my husband would still say I don't. So,
Mhm.
but I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going through. that and decided I couldn't do med school. So I switched to accounting, got married, switched to accounting at night. Like I was only doing it at night.
Mhm.
I had gone 1 year at U of I and then got married and started working full time. Went to Elmhurst College then for accounting, and that was great. It was all math and easy.
Yuck.
So 4 years. I love math. So, and then I went into finance and really blossomed, did a great job, became chief financial officer, but wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted it to be, ultimately. And then along the way, there were other autoimmune
Yeah.
illnesses, second marriage, children, all that. And that second marriage was stable. And I thought that's exactly what I needed in my life after
Yeah.
making the decision that stability, that was the route I wanted to go. But it it wasn't me. It was a role I was playing to be in this stable relationship. So, I
Let's
mean,
talk about the roles we play as women.
yeah.
And I'm not saying this to discount men. I think men play roles as well. I think they struggle just as much as we do with identity and figuring out what role they play, especially as we start taking on more roles.
Mhm.
Um, what role were you playing? What was the idea of what you were supposed to be in that marriage?
I was the Angelique woman. I was the one, I was having this
Doing it
kick-ass
all.
career and I was taking care of the kids. I was coming home, making dinner. I was, um, making sure things were taken care of. So, and, but somehow made it seem like that's how I always wanted it to be, right? Like
Yeah.
I made it seem, and that was totally on me
Hmm.
that I couldn't sustain that perfectionism,
Hmm.
that perfect person role, that Stepford wife role, right?
It's so
Like,
much pressure, but we
yeah.
do take it on ourselves because we've been told we can do it.
Hmm.
And like I said, we can. Should we? No. And I do think that just from my experience, I've been married for, oh my gosh, I don't know, 20 something years. I don't know. We lost count after 20. We just stopped counting. So, um, he'll probably hate me for that. He'll be like, oh my God, you don't know how long you've been married? Oh my God. But the one thing that I can say is that as I stepped into that role of do it all, he backed away because he was trying to
Yes.
support me. He was trying to be like, well, you want that role. There was at one point a couple of years ago, I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't bring in money. I can't also take care of the kids, make sure the lunches are good, make sure the house is clean, make sure everyone's taken care of. My parents are like all the things that I've done over the years. I can't do this anymore and I need your help. And he looked at me and he said, why didn't you just ask? I thought that's what you wanted. Right? And
Wow.
so it can it can dissolve a relationship because I think it puts a lot of pressure on the man as well because he doesn't want to step on our toes or seem like he's not supporting the woman in her empowerment role. And it can cause a lot of miscommunication in the
Yeah.
marriage, yeah?
Yeah.
You know, that I thank heavens for him being like, well, just ask. And I was like, oh, well, great. So then I started asking, and our relationship and our communication was a lot better at that point because he started to notice, oh, she looks a little stressed out or she's starting to snap at the kids. That's a sign that I'm not okay, that
Oh.
I'm overextending myself. So have you, as you've beautifully aged and grown, and have you been able to release a lot of that expectation on yourself?
So oddly enough, when I did go to medical school is
Yeah.
when I had to let that go, right?
Right.
Like, third husband by the time I
Mhm.
went to medical school. Fabulous, love, still married, doing great. But that was when I had to let things go. I couldn't possibly maintain everything and be in school I mean, it's not
Okay.
just full time school.
Okay.
It's like I'm in school from, this is 8 a.m. till
Mhm.
5 p.m. And then I'm studying from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. And
And then adding
oftentimes,
clinical rotations in there
yeah.
too in the last 2 years. It was like 8 hours of school, 4 hour shift, studying till 2 a.m. I had a baby
Oh
in
my,
between my junior and senior year of med school, like a champ, because I thought,
yeah.
I can handle this. I have 6 weeks off. He was actually born in the like 6 week interim between
Well,
junior
look
and
at
senior year.
you.
Right? I willed it, I guess. But same thing. It's like then you start to beat yourself up. So did you have these moments where you were like, I'm not a good mom because I'm not present. I'm not where I need to be. I'm not a good wife. Did you go through that perfectionist dilemma of I'm not good enough?
Of course, absolutely. Not even just in med school, but through
Yeah.
my career, right? Like I'm always failing at something. I'm either failing at my job or I'm failing at motherhood or I'm failing at being a wife or at taking care of the house, right? Like, yeah, always failing at something is how kind of how you take that to heart
I'd like
then.
to just get rid of the word failure in
I
general.
know, yeah.
I just I just don't believe in it. I used to. I'm with you. I used to be I'm horrible at this. Oh, if I could just do it better. Or it's like I would set a goal, I would hit that goalpost and then I'd move the goalpost. It was unattainable. Perfectionism, and this is coming from a retired runway model, okay?
Hmm.
Perfectionism is unattainable.
It is. It
You could
is.
have everything that society thinks is beautiful. You can be 6 feet tall. You can have the large forehead. You can have the big eyes. You can have the big smile. You can be the right weight. You can look kick ass in amazing designer clothes. You can get up on a runway. It is still not perfect. There's no such thing because perfection is what you define. So there are so many perfections that I see in people that they don't see in themselves. And I think as a provider, and I'm sure you have this experience too, when you get that one on one with a patient and you see their soul, you
Hmm.
see their beauty, you see what they bring to the world, but they see what they're failing at. It's a heartbreak
That is
because it's
so
like,
well
hold,
said.
hold on. Like, there is so much beauty in you and so much that you bring to the world. And that perfectionism, although it gives us drive, it can also give us a lot of issues with our self worth, a lot of self esteem issues because we never can accomplish it. It's literally unattainable. So, how do you change that? And I also, which is what the whole conversation is, right? How do we change that? But what I do want to point out, and I wanted to ask you before we go there, is you had said you had multiple autoimmune diseases, right? So they find the colitis issue, whether that's ulcerative
Yeah.
colitis or Crohn's, right? And then it went on to like scleroderma and vasculitis and vitiligo. So it continued to expand, right, in you?
Yes, yes, yeah.
And there's a ton of research on this that 80% of people who have an autoimmune disease say that it happened after a stressful event,
Yes.
right? That there was a definite link between their sympathetic nervous system and overstimulation and the turning on of that genes. And people ask, is it genetic? Is it environment? Right? All the
Right.
time.
Yep.
And we know that autoimmunity can compound. We know that you can have one autoimmune disease. Like if you have celiac, it's a high probability you may have Hashimoto's, for example. But I do wonder, is that compounding, as we look at the research, is that more a stress response? Is that more a nervous system response that's turning these genes on and not necessarily a predisposed genetic situation? I don't know if you've looked at that with yourself or talked or thought about that, but I would love to hear what you think about this from a physician standpoint and
Hmm.
from a patient standpoint of just being consistently told, oh, now you have another one. Oh, hey, congratulations. Now you have another one. What was that journey like for you?
So I do think there's a whole mindset of that, right? Like once you are a patient, once you have a diagnosis, you become your diagnosis and you become a patient and you become a chronic patient even before you have additional chronic illnesses because of the mindset. Um, I mean, physically, I had strep throat like once a year for 10 years, right? So I was on antibiotics once or twice a year for 10 years. Yes, that probably has something, you know, to do with a predisposition to having some kind of autoimmune disease. Stress, absolutely. I 100% believe that stress is a primary factor, whether that's a traumatic event
Mhm.
or a chronic stress thing
Or perfectionism.
creating it for ourselves with the roles we need to play. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's a factor, and everybody that I work with, we work about stress, and we work on how are, thoughts and beliefs and judgments and how to reframe things. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get better if you're in a chronic illness mindset.
I work with autoimmunity a lot too, and I
Yeah,
can't think of a single patient over the years with some sort of autoimmune disease that didn't have some level of worry and anxiety. Not one.
yeah,
Actually, one, because she got rid of it. She got
yep,
rid of the worry and anxiety, and her celiac has pretty much resolved. I mean, granted, she can't eat gluten, but she even said to me,
yeah,
she goes, you know what? She goes, I don't have celiac. I just don't eat gluten. And I said, that's a beautiful way to say it. She
yeah.
said, I'm just not going to give myself a label and I'm not going to eat gluten, but I just can't eat it right now. And that's
That's
okay. And that's
perfect.
okay with me. And the mindset shift in her, now she sleeps well. She has no symptoms. You know, her nutrition is great. She's building muscle. She's losing the weight she wants. She has great sex. She has a amazing relationship with her husband, which she didn't have, by the way,
Yeah.
because she was so like downtrodden by this diagnosis and the diarrhea and the the medications, and could she go out and could she not,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she made this huge mindset shift, and her antibodies against her thyroid improved. She's not on thyroid medication. I mean, it was amazing. And I think hearing from people such as you is really valuable to other people with autoimmunity, because you do feel alone and you're not given any answers. And then when you're constantly told, oh, now you have another one, you think you're broken.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you can't come back from it, and you just keep adding. Not only do you keep adding autoimmune diseases or other side effect, like other things like dry eye, things that aren't necessarily autoimmune in nature, but premature ventricular contractions,
Mhm.
palpitations, neuropathy, right? Like all these other things that just come along with your autoimmune
Yeah.
diseases or conditions or diagnoses. But then all the medications that come with it too. And you just go with the program. You're just going along, you're adding diagnoses and you're adding medications and you're having six different specialists that you go to because every one of your systems is affected. Kidneys, lungs,
Yeah.
heart, brain, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's so much. It's like a part-time job in addition to your regular job just to manage your, and I say in quotes, health care. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and even like if you were to diagnose lupus, right? It's like you need 8 of these symptoms out of these 15 or whatever, and they're all over the body. So
Yeah.
every single person with lupus has a totally different presentation. So you're seeing the rheumatologist who really isn't really looking at anything other than the
Yeah.
ANA. And then they're like, well, if the ANA is positive, here's your immune therapy. Go to the GI for the GI symptoms. Go to the pulmonologist for the pulmonology symptoms. Go to the nephrologist for the kidney symptoms. And then nobody's communicating, and you're on all these medications, which guess what, kids? Gives your body more stress because your body is just as confused as you are, right? Which
Yeah.
is why
Yeah.
it's giving symptoms all over the place. One of the things I always say with my clients is, your body is trying to tell you something when it has a
hmm
symptom. It's saying,
hmm
pay attention, listen. If this was your child and your child came home and said, I have a bellyache, or I have a headache, or I don't feel good at school, people are making fun of me, how would you treat the child? Right? Would you divide them up in pieces and go send them off to different people and dismiss them and tell them they're horrible? No, but we do that to ourselves. We say, I hate my body because I have a stomach ache. I always have these headaches. I can't do this. I can't do that. And we get into victim mode really quick.
hmm hmm
But we would come at the child with love and compassion.
Yeah.
Oh, sweetheart, did you eat something funny today? Have you been going to the bathroom? We
Right.
would ask those questions to a child. we're not asked that, and we don't ask ourselves that. And I think in autoimmunity, it's really important to listen to what the body's trying to say, and it's not about the specialist. I presume you would agree. You were on like 10 medications at one time or something?
For sure, yes, absolutely. Plus, including a biologic, infusions and yeah.
But you're not
And
cheap.
no, not cheap.
I mean, I have a friend with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and she does
Yeah,
have to rely on a biologic at this point.
yeah.
But insurance coverage for that is like null and void. She has to put that into her budget, you know.
Oh, mine was covered, thankfully.
Yeah, but I mean, that's another thing to consider, right? All of the costs associated with that. So, so at this point, you're a CFO, right? I mean, you're doing financial, you're in
Yeah.
a totally different career, you decide to go to med school, you have all these autoimmune diseases. Where are you now with these autoimmunities and these symptoms?
So I changed my diet around 2014. I
Hmm.
changed mindset and diet. Diet first, and then I
Hmm.
realized mindset was also a factor.
Hmm.
Um, I felt so much, but I felt I needed a new baseline. So, and I listened to my body. How many years was my body, did I have this niggling thought in the back of my mind saying, you probably shouldn't drink soda twice a day, and you probably shouldn't have the Snickers bar as your 10 a.m. snack every day after you had cereal for breakfast, right? Like,
How
I
many people
knew
can
it,
relate to that, right?
right? Like,
Yeah.
you know it, but nobody told me not to do it. Like, the doctor never told me not to do it, so it must not be that bad. But
Hmm.
I I tell my patients, I'm like, you know what you need to do. You've heard in your head. Your body is telling you, but your head is also telling you. You've had the thoughts. You know what you have to do. Just gotta listen. You gotta take a moment and listen. So I decided, I just looked up natural ways to heal, like to feel better, and decided that's what I was going to do. So I pretty much took out processed foods, sugars, all the things, inflammatory foods, gluten, dairy for about a month and did a reset. I also stopped all my medications,
Wow.
um,
By the way,
pretty
I don't
much.
recommend doing that on your own, just putting the
Right.
disclaimer out there.
I needed to do it for myself, and I also don't recommend that to my patients. So yeah, that was just something I did, and my doctors were not, they were not on board either. So, but it came time 2 months later for me to have my next infusion, and I felt great. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. So, um, yeah, it was so empowering, and I felt so much lighter. I could eat again without throwing up. Like, I threw up every day. Like, my doctor thought, his explanation for me, even though I had been on a PPI for 25 years, his explanation for why I was throwing up was I had an eating disorder. Well, I didn't. I just needed to stop taking the PPI.
I know you're going on with this, but I wanted to ask you because I have a lot of people that I talk to throughout my days that have autoimmunity, and they've cleaned up their diet. They're eating an amazing diet. They're all whole foods. It's been years,
Yeah.
but they're still having stomach pain. They're still having gut issues. They're still having all these things where their doctors are telling them to take a PPI, maybe do biologics or whatever. So I imagine I wanted you to speak to the mindset piece of that as well, because you're talking about cleaning up the diet. But just from my experience, seeing when people make that mindset shift, that's where the propeller, that's where it's like, okay, now the body starts to respond. So, can you speak to that a little bit as well for those people that are out there saying, I've already done the diet. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, it helped a little bit, but I'm still stuck and nobody has an answer for me.
Yeah, so that is the critical piece. It is a critical piece. In my case, I had the support of my husband, my third husband,
Yeah.
and he did it with me, even though he didn't have any issues with his physical health, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did all the elimination with me. He ate exactly what I ate for the whole month, and I felt loved and supported and cherished, and that was a huge piece. So you have to have that. And I read some books, The Loving Diet and Biology of Belief, and I started thinking about what thoughts do I have? What was I holding? What truths did I think I was having in my mind that weren't serving me? They weren't true, or I could change them, right? Like, and that was big. Like I had to let things go. I had to think about what was no longer serving me.
I think
Things,
that's a great way to look at it, no longer serving you, because a lot of the times when we're kids we get into a protective mode,
right,
because it serves us up until that point, and then there's a point it's like I'm a grown person, I don't need to support anyone else, I just need to support me. And letting go of that often is so ingrained in our subconscious that our conscious mind doesn't understand they become
right.
disconnected. So it's like we're like, yeah, I know I need to release it, Dr. Jen, I get it, I understand, I had a stressful childhood, but I can't. When we start to say I can't, I start to say, okay, where's that disconnect between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind? Did you do any sort of hypnosis or meditation therapy to access that? Or for you, was it just the reframing and the making a decision, a choice to let it go?
Yeah, for me, it was a lot of just hearing it, learning that, like, the mechanisms that I put in place as a child for my safety, right? Like, you create these beliefs and judgments and practices in your body to create a place of safety that you need at the time, and then your body gets attuned to it. That's muscle memory, and then you don't need that anymore. And so, yeah, it's just that conscious act of thinking, and it would going out on walks, spending time by myself, being able to think quietly, right? Like having that time to think and consider. So I love doing some walking, but I also love sitting with some red light therapy, like just in front of my red light.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's where I just focus inward at that point, and things start changing in my mind, or I'll think of something and I'll say, oh, I need to consider that for the future. And something else that'll get me triggered will be if I recognize that I am judging somebody or something, right? Like that's an excellent time for some self-reflection. Like,
Well, comparison. I mean, when you find yourself saying, "Well, they have the same disease I do. How come they're better?" Well, they have that
yeah,
house. How come I don't? Oh, well, they have that job. Why aren't I not up there? I do think. Well, or you go online and you say, "Well, go to the ulcerative colitis thing." Well, this person is healed, but I haven't. But this person, like when we start looking at other people's journeys,
yeah,
to me, that's a sign that we're in a fight or flight. We're living out of our fear response. We're living in basically in our prefrontal cortex, making
hmm
inappropriate decisions for our body. And getting into those calm states, has been shown to improve the health. Just name a disease and try to look up, does being in the parasympathetic nervous system help improve the symptoms and reduce disease? Yes, the answer is yes. You ask any single conventional doctor, cardiologist, does stress impact the heart health? Yes. How do we change it? I don't know. Just
hmm
think about it. Right. There's no resources for that in the conventional world. In our world, oh my gosh, the resources are vast.
yes,
I mean, neurofeedback, biofeedback, hypnosis, using little aura rings and things to bring yourself into an alpha state, to a theta state, using positive reframing coming from love and gratitude rather than anger and blame. We've got all of these different tools
hmm
that we use that the
exactly,
conventional world doesn't get. And here's the thing,
exactly,
they're free. So when people
yes,
say, well, it's so expensive to do natural medicine, there are parts that are. If you're trying to heal or recover from, nutritional deficiencies, you need certain supplements, there's hormones, whatever. The whole internal and stressor environment, that may cost money up front. It may cost money up front to hire the practitioner. But 80% of the tools are something you can start right now as you're listening to this with
At
breath
home.
work, with, right, I mean, throw them out there. Breath work, we've got walking, we've got reframing, playing different
Sunlight.
music at different frequencies when you
Yep.
go to sleep. What else you got,
Yep.
Dr. Jen?
Sunlight, heart rate variability, right? So those thoughts of renewing versus depleting thoughts, like you said, breath work,
Yeah,
essential oils, that's another good one.
absolutely. Eating nutritious food, giving the body what it needs, thanking the body for giving you a symptom.
Yes.
I know, that's insane. Why would I thank my body for pain? But think about it. If you were playing a sport, I'm a hip hop dancer. That's what I do. I dance all the time, right? I dance 6 hours a week. So if I go to hip hop and all of a sudden I have a pain in my ankle, it makes me go, uh-oh, did I sprain my ankle? I better be careful. Let me check this out. Those types of pains we respond to with gratitude.
Yes.
We're like, oh, good. Okay, we injured ourselves. We better take it easy. But we don't do that with our other symptoms. So think about it. Pain is a signal that the body's trying to tell you. It may not be the autoimmunity, the pain. They may not be injury. They may be emotional.
Yeah, for sure.
They may be and likely are.
And also, yeah,
I
often
was
are.
interviewing Kelly Kennedy, who is the lymph queen, who's hilarious. She's so much fun.
Yeah.
And she was like, whoa, hold up there, Tricia. 100% of the time they're emotional. And I was like, you're right. But that's a hard concept for people to get a hold of.
It
So I'm so
is.
glad that you are saying. I mean, you even say in your bio, you've been symptom-free and medication-free,
Yes.
right? For
Yes.
how long?
For 10 plus years now. So,
With multiple autoimmune diseases.
well, with multiple, with
Diagnosed autoimmune
right.
diseases.
Yeah. I mean, I don't consider that I have them anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, so.
Well, you
But
don't.
at some
because-
point in the past, I was
Yeah.
diagnosed with them, yes.
Well, and like I said, diagnosis for autoimmunity is subjective. I mean,
Yes.
people would argue that celiac is celiac is celiac is celiac. However, I have genes for celiac disease. I do not have celiac disease, have never been diagnosed with celiac disease, and do not have antibodies against gluten, but I have the gene. So I have two genes actually, and it runs in my family. When I did my genetics, I found that. However, if you run a celiac panel on me, it's negative.
Uh-huh.
I also chose to not eat gluten, right? Because I was like, well, if I don't eat gluten, I'm not going to trigger it anyway. So I'm just not going to do it. So now the question comes, do I have celiac or do I not have celiac? I say I don't. I'm just gluten-free.
Yes.
And I think that's a great point. Like we were talking about lupus, you have to have so many different symptoms. So if you're symptom-free and all you have is the gene, or all you have is maybe a positive ANA or something, which is not enough for diagnosis, you no longer have autoimmune disease.
Right.
Right?
So like for Crohn's, it's not so much an ANA thing, it's a biopsy, right? It's looking at the tissue, the pathobiology, and yeah, I don't have that anymore.
Right.
So from yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I hope that gives hope to everyone with autoimmunity here. When you come and you say, can I reverse this? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be done, but like you're saying, it's not just physical. It is so much emotional and mental in there also. So, I mean, you have to do that work.
And if you are a perfectionist, you're someone who's driven, you're someone that does it all, you're someone that wears all the hats, you are going to have a harder time reversing the situation, whatever that may be. And I think there's so much power in trust. Are you someone who are you in faith at all? Are you a religious person, or what is your
Spiritual, yes. Grew up with
Yeah.
a lot of faith. Both of my grandparents were Presbyterian reverends, and my father he went to theology college or something like that. He didn't, do that, but yeah, definitely grew up with a lot of faith, and don't practice to that
Yeah.
degree now, but definitely spiritual in nature. Yeah.
I think it's the same. I don't think you have to be religious to be spiritual. I don't
For
think
sure.
you have to be religious to have faith. I think it's a self-trust and a self-knowing. I'm not religious either. I wasn't raised in an environment like that, but I have a ton of faith. I have a ton of
Yes.
faith and trust in the universe to guide me where I need to go if I'm
Yes.
calm enough to see the opportunity and I'm not overwhelmed and running around like a chicken with my head cut off and trying to play all these roles that I'm then modeling for my children. You had said one of the things that kind of shifted your mindset was looking at your children and saying, what am I
What
modeling
am
for
I
them, right?
modeling?
What is the role I'm playing? Tell us a little bit about that.
Uh, so it really came down to kind of accepting how the interaction was between my husband and I at the time, right? Like how we parented. We did not see eye to eye on parenting, and um, and we couldn't get there. And I didn't want to. I wasn't comfortable letting it happen that I didn't have a voice for how that was going to happen. So I ended up having to have a voice, and um, it- that didn't go with my role
Yeah.
that I had created. Yeah,
So many of us hold our voice back. I
yeah,
started this show as a way to bring my voice out because it had been held back for
yeah.
many years
And I
based on
had
what
done it
other people said I
intentionally.
could say or not say, or you show up, you be who I tell you to be. And I also felt, well, why would anyone want to listen to me? Who am I don't have any valuable information to share with anybody. I'm just some person, right? And that wasn't true.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had to release my voice and start talking and really think about the accomplishments that I've made in my life, not in a egotistical way, but in people that I can serve and I can help, and people that I've seen change their lives because I had a private conversation with them. So why not bring that voice out? But
That's
as
beautiful.
women, we do tend to block off our throat chakra and we say
Hmm.
no, and we have all this love in our heart and we have all this noise in our head. And what's in between it, y'all? What's in between our head and our heart? Our throat. Um, I can't remember who I think it was Kelly McCann I was interviewing, and she said, isn't it funny how like 80% of women have a thyroid disorder?
Yes, I
And
was
she
just
goes,
gonna.
isn't it funny how women live out of our heart and our heads and the thyroid lands in between? And I was like, you are so spot on. No wonder we have
Yes.
Hashimoto's, right? No wonder it primarily affects women. Is it an estrogen thing? I mean, we could argue there's an estrogen role in
There
thyroid
is.
conversion. Okay, great. But men have estrogen too.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we can 100% put all our eggs in that basket. I think we have to look at what's between. What is it between our heart and our head? So you have been a fabulous example of connecting those two and overcoming something that is a huge struggle for so many people that I
Yes.
speak about. So I'm so happy that you were able to come here and share your story, even though I know it twists and turns and goes on and we could talk for hours on end.
It
But
does.
I wanted to open it up to you with any final thoughts that you have for the audience. And I also want you to tell people where they can find you,
Okay.
so they can learn a little bit about you and your story and where you're located and all of that.
Well, one other thing is that the I did end up going to medical school, right?
Yeah.
So I did complete that, and I stayed symptom free. I never went on any medication. I still don't take Advil or Tylenol or anything like that, right? So yeah, that was great. And I feel that was a true test, but at the same time, had something happened, I would have been okay with it. I would have given myself grace and the ability to let that happen, right? So it's not a straight line. It's not like anything is never going to come back, and that's okay. So I've learned that too. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Grace. What is that? Give ourselves grace. Yes.
that's like written on my wall. So just as a reminder.
I have a
Um,
reminder on my wall that says, today you are exactly where you are supposed to be. What happens tomorrow is up to you.
oh, good.
Yes. So where can people find you? What did you do with your practice? Where are you at?
So now I opened a small natural health clinic. It's called NeuroSherpa. It's in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and it's myself. Currently, it's myself and chiropractor slash massage therapist,
Mhm.
and we work together, and we do a fabulous job as a team. Um, a lot of autoimmune, a lot of weight, hormones, menopause, and all the things that go with it that there is no specialist in the traditional medicine field for. And it's wonderful. I love helping. I love working with people. I love hearing their stories. I so many times they come to me and I'm the first one that they've had who's listened, who's given them hope, who's given them something else to think about, and it's beautiful. So, my
Well,
webs
oh, go
did
ahead,
you
your
want my
website.
my website? It's easy, www.nourisherpa.com. It's NOURISHERPA. So yeah, and there's more information there.
Yeah, and I'll put it down in the show notes as well.
Okay.
And, I think it's so, I mean, it happens with all of us. We go through these struggles and we end up specializing in what we went through because we understand it. And so being able to understand it from the other side, and giving hope to anyone out there that just is frustrated, there are solutions out there. And we do have to deal with that role that we created for ourselves when we were little, we decided what we were going to be when we grow up, and realized that maybe what we set out for ourselves was not the answer, and that making change is okay, and what served us up till that point was great, but we need to serve ourselves in a different way now. And that realization was pivotal for me, was pivotal for you. So I hope that it's pivotal for all of you out there listening. Thank you, Dr. Jen, for being here today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Yes, it's wonderful. This was lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.